What?
And the meeting is being recorded. So for all of those who heard that, that's the truth. But throughout, again, introduce yourselves, use the chat function to engage with the content, as well as the emojis if you hear something you like or if you want to celebrate something. But do stay muted just so we make sure that the communication is clear and nothing is interrupted. I want to, again, thank you all for joining us. This is the final portion of our Fall 2020 Voices of the Diaspora Series, which is a collaborative initiative led by the Study Abroad leadership at Morgan State University, Prairie View A&M, and Howard University. And so once we pull the presentation back up, my co-coordinators, Stephanie Tilley and Marissa Gray, will introduce themselves. And if we have any of our colleagues in the room, as each of our schools introduces themselves, colleagues, if you want to introduce yourselves or just give a thumbs up or a high five, that'll be great too. This is the link that, or this is the QR code that is the same as the link for the participation form. So for the students in the room, I know oftentimes the QR code is the preferred way to navigate things. Feel free to use that. But we can go to the next slides. We'll be taking screenshots. So if you don't want to be in the screenshot, please turn off your camera. But otherwise, it'll be a great way for us to all remember this beautiful moment that we're creating, the sacred space we have here. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to my colleague Marissa Gray to introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our program. I'm so happy to see so many of you here today. I am Marissa Gray. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Director of Study Abroad at Morgan State University. I have been at Morgan for the past 15 years, first as a student and now as an admin. I enjoy my job. I enjoy what I do. And I'm so happy that we can share our pathways to the field of international education with our students. Now I'll turn you over to Stephanie. Oh, wait, before I go, anybody from Morgan, from my office, the Division of International Affairs, please introduce yourself. I know we have Najol, our Study Abroad Program Coordinator. We have Fahad, Mozami, and we have Saran. I believe I saw Saran's name. So please feel free to introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. As stated, my name is Nigel Minley. I am the Program Coordinator in the Office of Study Abroad at Morgan. I too was a student for all of my undergrad and am also admin as well. So it's been fun. It's only been a year and a few months for me, but it's been a really fun year and a few months. I look forward to more years in this field.
Hi everyone, I'm Farhad Muazzami. I'm the Virtual Exchange Program Manager. I got my master's degree at Morgan here after I brought my undergrad, actually, my engineering degree from Iran. So now I'll be here too, listening, learning.
Hello everybody, my name is Saran Greenwich, Director here at Morgan State University for the Office of Global and Cross-Cultural Programs. My master's is at UMD College Park in Tech Entrepreneurship, and I'm also an HBCU grad from Coppin State University, woohoo, go Eagles, and working at Morgan for almost, 2 years now. And I've done a lot of study abroad work. I've also had my own projects abroad in Haiti, in the Philippines, in Israel, Palestine, and the list continues. So I did add my email address in the chat there if anybody has questions regarding to, anything that you want to inquire about, whether it's study abroad, virtual exchange, or just different experiences. I'm definitely available. Please email me. Thank you.
Okay, Stephanie?
Hello, hello. My name is Stephanie Tilley. I work at Prairie A&M University, aka The Hill. I am a program coordinator for study abroad. I've been in this role for over 2.5 years, and it has been quite a journey, many good blessings, many good memories. I have two of my dear colleagues here that will introduce themselves in a moment. So welcome. Looking forward to a rich dialogue, looking forward to just community and sharing our experiences and how we continue to support one another in this field. Marcus, Shadana?
Okay, well, they say ladies first, so Shadana Cheney, study abroad advisor in the Office of International Programs. I work alongside Stephanie Tilley and Marcus King, and I'm excited to be here.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marcus King. I work in the International Programs Office at Prairie View. It's nice to see some familiar faces on here and some new ones as well. So I'm looking forward to the panel today.
And if there's anyone from Howard in the room, any of the staff in the Bunch Center, please feel free. I didn't think I saw anyone.
All right, everybody, on our screen, you should have a poll, so please choose your affiliation. If you're a part of the HBCU, choose which HBCU, or if not, choose the title that best explains your affiliation.
All right, and as everyone is filling this out, you're a part of something right now, and it's called the hashtag Study Abroad So Black movement. So the movement was an initiative born out of a few conversations between Dr. Keisha Abraham and Tania Navis and myself related to the awareness that study abroad has a history of being so white in terms of the rate of student participation, as well as the history of the professional culture of the field. So through my position working to empower and inform the Howard student body, and in collaboration with Howard students, we decided to flip the script and create a call to action for Black students at any institution worldwide to seek out and maximize global learning opportunities. And therefore, we have the Study Abroad So Black movement. So though this hashtag was started at Howard, please use it, own it, cultivate it, expand it, share it, grow it, because it's really for any of us who really believe that Black students should be seeking out and pursuing cross-cultural learning experiences abroad so that we can own our narrative and really impact the world. So that is the movement in a nutshell. Have we collected all of the responses for the poll? Dr. Gray?
Yes, can you see the polling results?
I can't see it.
Use the examples from the document.
Hold on.
We can see them.
You guys can see them? Okay. Stephanie, can you see them?
It just popped up for me.
Okay.
Yes, I can see them.
All right, well, somebody share them.
All right, I'll share it. Okay, so taking the lead, we have study abroad providers. Where are study abroad providers at? Show your face or say hello.
Hi.
Where is hi coming from?
Oh, sorry, Stephanie. It's Rita from IS. Sorry.
Rita, IS in the building. Who else do we have?
Hi, Dominique, also from IS.
IS is strong today. There we go. Tell Gretchen we said hello. Hello from Prairie View.
Darren Smith-Gaddis from Kappa is here.
Okay, Darren. Woo woo.
Hey everyone, this is Giovanni with SIT Study Abroad.
All right, all right. And
Hi everyone, it's Angela from AIFS.
Who was that?
Angela.
It's Angela from AIFS Study Abroad.
Hello, Angela.
Hello.
Hey family, it's Christina with Barcelona SAE.
Woo woo. So we got 6 strong for the study abroad provider, and following up, we have other international education administrators or organizations. So where are y'all from?
If I'm sorry, we might be here all day if we do shout outs with everyone. So I'm sorry, we got a good conversation at hand. I'm sorry, can we keep going? Can everyone see the results? Do we see the percentages? I'm gonna take your word on it because I can't.
Okay.
Don't beat me up later, Stephanie. I'm sorry, girl. We'll be here all day. Let's get to these wonderful panelists that we have here. And so if Ronelle would like to start us off first, I believe. She's the next slide.
Sure. Do you need me to say anything, or just are we reading the presentation?
Yeah, no, Ronelle, if you would take some time just to share anything that's not already on this slide about yourself. I think we introduce ourselves in the best way.
Sure. Just to say, I don't know if it's good afternoon. I'll just say good day. I am calling in from Cape Town, South Africa right now. And I think the only thing that's not there is that during this lockdown, I started my own company, which is a Pan-African exchange program called Ulwazi Africa. And so just to do a bit of a shout out on that.
Thank you. Our next presenter is, sorry, I can't remember the order of the slides.
No.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Pernell Whitfield, Jr., and I'm currently at James Madison University. It was going on 4 years that I've been here working as a study abroad advisor and also exchange program coordinator. And then within my role, I also get to work with a few of our, I guess, faculty-led programs such as Ghana and Taiwan.
Corey.
Hi everyone, I am Corey Saunders. I use she, her pronouns. I am a graduate of Hampton University, so shout out to all the HBCUs in the room. And I'm currently an assistant director for strategic marketing, diversity, and inclusion at NC State University. And I'm originally from Jersey.
Dewan.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dewan Clark. I serve as the Dean of Global Initiatives here at Fisk University. I've been here 3 years. October just made 3 years that I've been serving international students as well as study abroad. I'm a proud graduate of Florida A&M University, so also shout out to all the other HBCUs on the line, and thank you all for this platform. It's really exciting to continue this conversation and see so many familiar faces.
Lamar.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lamar Chambly. I use he, him pronouns. Coming to you live from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. I am a high school Spanish teacher and the founder of Teens of Color Abroad. Our mission is to provide high school students of color with language immersion study abroad programs. Really excited to talk more about what we have done right now during this precarious time, and excited to learn more from everyone on the panel.
All right. And here comes another second polling question.
And so this question is being thrown out there because there's a lot of conversation about who does this work and how to encourage more people of color to do this work. And so a lot of the times, one of the barriers that organizations put out there when they're saying that their organizations aren't as diverse as they'd like for them to be is that there aren't a lot of folks who have study abroad experience. So it would be interesting, I think, to share what our thoughts are on whether or not the industry should require study abroad for its professional staff.
All right, so 69% of our audience believe that you do not necessarily need to have studied abroad to work in international education, and 31% said yes.
Excellent. Okay, all right. Well, maybe we can revisit that a little more deeply as we continue in the conversation, but I think it's good for all of us to just take note of. Feel free to use the chat if you have some feedback on why you chose the answer that you did, and we can have this conversation simultaneously. So the first question that we're going to pose to everyone on the panel is, how has your Black identity influenced how you've navigated the professional field of education abroad? And if so, can you think of an example of how? And so if Duan would like to start us off, that'd be great.
Yeah, so thanks for this question. Here you all can see I'm pictured with my family. This is my first visit to Haiti with my grandmother in the middle and her brother to the left of her, and then aunt, and then several cousins there. And so my identity has influenced my profession in study abroad or education abroad, simply because that's where I got my exposure. It was through Florida A&M, a very unique program called the Center for Global Security and International Affairs that was primarily focused on increasing the representation of Black people, males, the underrepresented groups, making sure that we had representation in the various agencies, particular to the Department of State, Department of Defense, and several others. That's where our funding came from at the time. But in working, I should mention that I've been in the field since 2015. I've been very fortunate to be catapulted, in a sense, into a more advanced level of the career or in the field of international education without necessarily having to navigate some of the more entry-level positions. So I've been very fortunate in that regard. And I think it really is a reflection on a bit of the question that was asked before. Is it a requirement for people to study abroad to work in the field of international education? It may not be a requirement, but I think that it really changes the level of conversation and exchange that we have with the students. I myself had an opportunity to study in the University of Ghana for a semester, also being funded by that Center for Global Security and International Affairs. And my world just blossomed. My whole perspective on who I was, who I am to this day has really been shaped by my experience in Ghana. I always say that it took for me to go outside of this country, outside of the US, to understand what it meant to be Black in the US, to unpack all of these identities. Yes, I'm Black, but there's some other identities that are usually placed upon us within the US context. And so, you know, naturally navigating this space, I didn't in the US as a professional, that study abroad experience is a constant reminder that I am so much more than what my identity is in a single space. And so I think in conversation with students and encouraging them to study abroad, much of my passion is really, quite honestly, invested in making sure that we are represented. And when I say us, we as in Black folks are represented in education abroad, because it was a life-changing experience and still is a life-changing experience for many of the people that I'm connected with. I remember the excitement and the level of curiosity that my family had. My very first time going abroad was to China, but the level of curiosity was just unmatched. I hadn't seen it before, never had seen my family get excited so much and have so much curiosity around a single person doing something within the family as, you know, as extreme as studying abroad. And so much of my career, I would say, has been dedicated to HBCUs. I worked at Lincoln University before, and now 3 years in here at Fisk. And my excitement, my passion is still the same. To see our students come back with such joy, such new, you know, faith and hope in themselves is really what keeps me going in this field. And so I've really been fortunate to work in this capacity and serve students that look like us, because again, it is really a life-changing experience, and it has really catapulted me to higher heights. And so I see the same for our students, and I'm very hopeful that, you know, as I continue to work in the field, that we, you know, address some of these issues that we're talking about today and not having to revisit them, you know, in the years to come.
Thank you so much, Dewan. I really appreciate that as well. Like, I value the passion that the students come back with and that renewed sense of identity and hope and all of the possibilities. Corey, would you like to follow up next, please?
I feel like my identity has definitely shaped the way that I navigate the spaces of international education. So my background is in international marketing, like corporate work. And I realized, like, I was just talking about studying abroad to like all the elementary school children, or like if I was doing stuff like with AKA, I would always be like, oh, if we're gonna have a college fair, a college workshop, we need to have study abroad in there. And so I was like, you know what, I feel like I need to pivot, you know, and while I was in Spain studying for my graduate degree, I was like, I need to go ahead on and pivot. But the thing that I found when I was trying to get into the field was I couldn't find anybody that looks like me. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So, and I knew that that wasn't true. So that narrative was perpetuated, but I knew it wasn't true. And so I felt like I wanted to be a part of the solution and change that narrative, and also amplify those who I knew were already in the space. I just couldn't find them. And I wanted to make sure that it was easier to find us later on. And so I know that my identity has definitely shaped me even just coming into the field. And as I've worked in the field, like the amazing people who are in this space, on this panel, and the attendees, it's this community and culture that continues to permeate. And I, as an HBCU graduate, wanted to make sure that that permeated in the spaces that I worked in. So I've worked in 2 predominantly white institutions in study abroad thus far. And one of my missions was to make sure that the students of color, the BIPOC students, and our Black and Brown students felt a sense of community within this study abroad space, within this predominantly white institution space, that we're not just invited to the table, but we gonna make some tables. And so that's the approach that I've had working at predominantly white institutions, to make sure that our students see themselves as a part of this, as well as our faculty and staff see themselves as a part of this whole group, as a part of this movement, as a part of Study Abroad So Black, as Raina has. So that's basically been my way of navigating the professional field, and also making sure that those who don't look like us understand that we're coming. We already here, and we're gonna continue to come, we're gonna continue to grow. We have so much to offer and lend to this industry and to this field. And our students are dope, so just get ready for them. That's just my take, and that's how I approach this work in terms of my identity.
I love it. We're gonna make some tables, that's right. Pernell, would you like to follow up next?
Sure. I feel like some of my points have been mentioned already, but I think coming into this field, I would say I thought it would be a lot of, you know, programs and meeting with students, advising, but as an international educator, and especially a Black international educator, there is a sense of advocacy that comes with the work as well. So, you know, people have already mentioned it, but, you know, those of us that have studied abroad, I can speak from my experience. I did a program in London. I was the only Black student out of 25, rich, white students. And so it was very, it was an interesting experience, but that's an experience that I can't forget in this line of work. And so I come into this, I'm working at my alma mater as well. And so I know what it's like. And so I'm able to have those conversations from experience. Like, this is something you may, experience while you, go abroad, or this is what you might encounter when you go abroad. And so I'm able to do that work with the students, but also try to have those conversations with my colleagues. Like, what are we doing to better prepare our students? What are we doing to, create those resources and things like that? So I think I come, approach my work with a sense of advocacy, and then I definitely just wait for the students, when students come back and share their experiences, and they're like, I want to go again. Help me find scholarships, help me do this. And so I look forward to those moments. It's definitely rewarding.
Thank you. I also relate to coming back to your institution that you attended and being able to pay forward and share that information that you've collected as a professional now. That's really great. Ronell, would you like to follow up on that?
Perfect. Do you know what is so interesting? Even reading this question over and over in my head, I wonder which, cart before the horse. Because for me, the idea, I come from a country that's very polarized, right? And so in South Africa, even the idea of saying that I'm Black, if this had been an webinar in South Africa, I would say, my name is Ronell, I'm registered as a colored woman, but I'm politically Black, because it's not the same thing, right? And so, well, technically it is the same thing, but it's a little complex here. And so when I think about the idea of education abroad, I almost feel like, in a sense, it shaped my confidence around my identity. So it's, kind of like the other way around, because wherever, there's a saying that goes like, wherever I go, there I am, because I was always like myself, right? But I didn't necessarily have the words, because also English was not my first language. I didn't have the words to describe who I was and how to present myself in the space. And I definitely I did not study abroad, but I traveled abroad by myself before I was even part of the study abroad movement. And that for me was a thing of the idea that I always wanted to defy this idea that only the privileged could move. Because even for my mom, she was so concerned about me moving and about being in different spaces that, because they were so indoctrinated by what they could not be, what we could not be. And so even the other day, I had made a realization that I'm actually a first generation university graduate. But what's different in my case is that this is not the kind of polarization is so visceral that there are so many others like me who would be first generational, because the racial politics had really been so structured and so systemic that no one in our families could ever study. And so it's, the realization of that for me was even a big deal. But to come back to has my, my identity influence, I think I've always thought very differently about university itself. I always thought that going to university means you go, you learn, you develop, you capacitate, and then you come back and you make an impact and you make a difference in your space, in your community. And I've always found ways to kind of navigate that. And so if I think about how my identity, whether it is my Blackness, how that had influenced, the experience of the profession in study abroad, I think my happy place actually comes from just that, is being able to work where the academy and where community development meets. And so I think that's, for me, is a huge kind of takeaway. And also just to say that study abroad was actually never a career for me. I never thought of it being something that I can do. And I know I'm going to chat about this a little later, but just, being in the space, seeing the opportunities, and then saying, I don't know who I could speak to about this, but I'm just going to try and walk on this path, which for me is very new and for everyone around me is very new. But let's try and discover what this means and how, in essence, I could bring more of myself and others like me along on this journey.
Thank you, Ronell. Yeah, it really hit me when you said that, working in an industry where the academy and the community meet. And I know that there's a rector in South Africa named Jonathan Jansen who does a lot of work on reconciliation within the context of higher education. So that to expand his approach to include the global understanding in the way that you're saying is powerful and significant. Future doctoral thesis as well.
Yeah. He's actually from my neighborhood, which is very rare. We hardly have people in the higher rankings that's from my particular neighborhood.
Okay. Lamar, how are you doing? How are you feeling about this question?
I'm good. I think being Black has influenced every single thing that I've done in my entire life, and it will continue to do so. I will be, that is at the forefront of everything that I do, especially as a teacher. It is an immense privilege to be a Black male educator, especially considering, wow, I'm so sorry that I'm blanking on the stat right now, but I think it might be 2%, either 2% or 4% of America's teachers are Black men. And so I get to be in the front, with my students who look like me and who come from my same neighborhood. I teach here, my students are mostly from Brownsville, East New York, Canarsie, Flatbush. But to stand in front of them as a proud Black man, who happened to learn another language because of my experience in studying abroad, which I'll talk about. But my students are like, are you Latino? Are you Dominican? Like, how do you speak this? And I'm like, yo, I had an incredible study abroad experience that, changed my life. And so language is tied to culture, but language is a skill. And so I am teaching you a skill that you can use to connect with community members. And so I think it's really important that students hear from a Black male teacher that, there are these experiences that they need to look for in the future in college, and beyond. So yeah, being Black is literally the, forefront of everything that I do.
And that's real. That's real. Thank you, Lamar. Okay. And so with this, we would like to hear from the audience. This is a discussion that we really want to be engaged and a community-oriented event. So if you could, again, raise your hand if you have a question that you'd like to pose to our panelists. One or two of them will answer it. And so you just go down to participants and then, actually I don't see. Oh yeah, then you go to more. No, you could put a thumbs up. You can do a thumbs up because I don't see the hand raise feature. I'm not seeing anyone, but I do think I have a chat message. Miles, yes, Miles from Howard University, studied abroad in Japan. Please, sir, do you have a question for the panel?
Hi, everybody. Yes, Miles Ezilo from Howard University, Atlanta, Georgia. I have a question specifically for Ms. Stevens. Is that okay? Can I direct it towards her?
Absolutely.
Cool. Ms. Stevens, in your interview, or I guess your intro, you talked a little bit about a Pan-African exchange program. That just perked my ears up. I was interested in what that was. So can you please give more information on what that is and where other people can find more information to be part of it?
Absolutely awesome. Great question, because that is my company. It's called Ulwazi Africa. I'll leave the information in the chat, but very quickly is, having been in study abroad for more than 16 years, I obviously had worked with multinational organizations. I've seen, the power of exchange, but I also come from a context where I know everything about European history and nothing about the continent. And everything that I know about the continent, I had to self-learn, right? And so that's kind of crazy when I'm Black and I'm from the continent, but that's also how kind of systemic, the racism is in our countries and how strong colonialism is in our countries. And so my kind of thinking about what do I want to change in study abroad, or what do I want to change in international education? I want to have an opportunity for African students to see themselves in exchange and to think about themselves as global students, not just in the context of leaving the continent and going to, you know, the diaspora or to other parts of the world, but also to see exchanges and the quality of exchanges on the continent, and to think about how can we be the ones to decide on how we kind of meet the challenges of the day on the continent on our own terms, but also how do we meaningfully engage the diaspora in this conversation. And so that's, you know, really the premise of the organization. But like I said, I'll drop my information in the chat. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but thank you so much for asking that question.
No problem, thank you.
Excellent, thank you as well, Miles, and thank you for the response right now. So our next question is, what inspired you to pursue a career in education abroad? And has the field lived up to your aspirations and your expectations? And so, Dewan, if you'd like to answer this one first, love to hear from you.
Yes, so I credit my interest in study abroad, with the field of international education to three key things. One is credit to Howard in hosting the Wrangle program. I was a part of the Wrangle Scholars Program, which really just changed like my understanding of governmental agencies. I think the program was specifically designed to, of course, increase the representation within the agencies. But naturally for me, I kind of learned, and I think this is a safe space, that I didn't want to work in the agencies, that was not something that I wanted to do for a lifetime, for a short period of my career. I wanted to be back into the HBCU environment. I wanted to give back to my community. Again, first generation student here. You know, the whole experience of study abroad was just such an unfamiliar thing to my family. I was, again, first generation, so a lot of my college experiences was new to the family. And I think that is a constant reminder for me as I work with students, is to have that connection with the family, because our students are not studying abroad alone. This is something that, you know, usually, you know, several people in the family are involved in, unlike some other student groups where it may be an individual decision. And so I have gone the lengths to talk to parents, to talk to, you know, grandmothers and uncles and whomever else that needs to hear why we do what we do, and are encouraging their student to study abroad. In addition to that, I did mention the Wrangle program, but there was also a program on on FAMU's campus that was crucial to my career path, which was the Center for Global Security. Like I said, they funded much of my study abroad experiences, and it was that level of support that really changed my ability to participate in study abroad. And now being a professional in the space, I'm constantly reminded of my own responsibility to create those avenues and access to international education, whether it be our students doing a virtual internship, international internship, or actually sending a student abroad. It's our responsibility as professionals within the field to create that space and that opportunity for them to walk through those doors, because a lot of it that they're dealing with is the confidence that they are or belong in that space. And so we have quite some work to do, because I, again, think of my own experience where I lack the confidence to feel that I should be in certain spaces. You know, now being a professional and, you know, going to conferences and seeing how the lack of representation within the field, and again, it points out to a remark that Amos Wilson made. You know, my shift from producer, and Amos Wilson, he had a lecture series, and this one specifically came from Black Child Development Under White Supremacy. Me as a male shifting from consumer to producer. So what is my responsibility to my community, and how do I make sure that I am producing something that my community can then benefit from? And so that's what really, you know, keeps me grounded in the work, is understanding my responsibility to give back and make sure that I reinvest into the communities that have invested in me.
I love that. I appreciate that too, moving from a consumer to a producer, and how there's so much space within the international education arena to do so. I put the link for the summer enrichment program that Dewan mentioned. I too was a participant of that program and also learned that government work was not my cup of tea, but then there's other ways to influence that work through these positions that we all hold. So I'm glad that you recognize that. It's still a great program. Everyone who's a student should really consider it. It's very informative. Ronell, would you mind also following up on this question? And then even if you could share where you're at in this picture, which is a lovely picture.
What a great picture. This makes me so happy seeing it. Thank you so much to your team for putting this together. I am at a CIEE conference. I think it's 2014. Also just fresh off becoming a mother, whoop whoop to myself. So that's with my colleagues from Ghana and from Senegal, or my ex-colleagues from CIEE. Kind of my response to this question, what inspired me, I think I alluded to the fact that international higher education or study abroad was just never in my orbit. I come from a family that obviously no one really went to university, but everyone knew that if you go, there's only 3 things you can become: a lawyer, engineer, or doctor. And so I took the track of becoming a lawyer, which I'm a graduate, a law graduate. Never practiced, but that was definitely the track. And it happened by pure chance. I went to university. First degree was completely paid for by a scholarship. Second degree, I paid out of pocket. And at this time, I was, of course, on campus trying to think about how was I going to make enough money to pay for this university fee. I heard from one of my colleagues, or one of the students in class, that the international office was paying more per hour than any of the other departments on campus. So guess where I found myself? At the international office, of course. Same day, by the way, with my ripped jeans, went into the office and I was like, hey, what do you need help? How can I help you? And that really was my journey. The interesting thing about that journey for me is that the person who I met, the first person I met, was Quentin Redcliffe. And he then ended up being the center director and my line manager for 12 years of my professional life in this international higher education. And in the same way, it was because it wasn't something that I had envisioned or something that I thought I would do for as a career. He really actually took me under his wing and showed me that it could be a little more than that, and that it doesn't just need to be limited to this is what you do and these are the targets that you meet, because that's kind of the rhetoric people started speaking into or falling into. But really for me, it became like, in a sense, a calling. How is it that I can bring those two worlds together? My love for community and like the development and the rhythm and the amazing things that happens there and reconcile it with like the world of academia. And that really was where I found my wings. Thinking about moving on to a different space was really, an opportunity for me to start thinking and being in a space with people who are not necessarily like-minded, because I was very protected in my first 12 years of working in international higher education. The next few years, I was extremely challenged because then I moved into a space that is on the continent, but not represented by people on the continent. And I ended up being the first Black manager. And that came as a huge surprise, because nothing about it indicated that it wouldn't be, it would be white only and white international, white foreign only. And it's in that particular space where I felt I really got to kind of hone what it is that I wanted to bring to the profession, and really got to, in the words that had been used before, create my own table. So really trying to kind of be clear about the path. And for me, it was really thinking about how do, there was opportunities with, the African Yale scholarship programs. There was opportunities with Morgan State University and all these other universities, HBCUs that I came into contact with. And I was really thinking about how do we bring together the world of the Black student meeting or coming into a community where they only see white volunteers or travelers. That's all they see. And so to kind of push the boundaries on that. And for me, what was quite profound is that I started the study abroad program for African Impact. And at the time that I joined, there was something like 1% of international, 1% of the international study abroad students were Black. And that for me was shocking, 1%. And, 2018, I started it, 2019, we already moved the pendulum to like 56. And had COVID not happened, it would have gone to 76%. And so for me, the power of like really kind of like being clear about your path and what you want to bring to the space doesn't necessarily need to be determined by like a childhood dream of becoming a top lawyer. But for me, it was more thinking about, okay, I'm here now. So what do I do and what is my contribution to this world? And I think that's, for me, the power of being surrounded by people who are willing to challenge and people who are also willing to support. And so I really found that in this space. And so it's also very like exciting for me to be in this space with everyone here, the panelists, the organizers, and also the attendees, because these are also all the people who I'd spoken through my journey, also rediscovering myself and my past.
I think we can all give you a celebration emoji on that. Thank you, Ronell, and thank you for contributing an international perspective into this conversation. I had mentioned that we had another panelist who would also be sharing their experience as a Black professional abroad. And as we continue to have these types of conversations, it's really essential that we have our whole community involved. So Ronell, you really, thank you for holding it down for the international community, especially on the continent.
Sure, thank you so much.
Okay, so the next question we have lined up is, what would you have told yourself 5 years ago that you have come to learn at this point in your career within education abroad? So, Corey, if I could ask you to lead on answering this question, please.
Well, 5 years ago is when I transitioned into the field of education abroad. And you couldn't tell me nothing about, I was getting in here. So I made sure, like, I didn't know a soul in international education. So I sent myself to NAFSA annual, because I didn't know nothing about a NAFSA regional. I was like, somebody could have told me I could not have to fly to California, but I was glad to go to San Diego. So I ain't mad. But I didn't know anyone. And when I got to this huge conference, I still knew no one there. And so 5 years ago, I took I took a chance on myself. So I would tell any student to take a chance on yourself. You know what you want to do, go for it, go after it, and do it, because that's what we have to do. I did not know anyone who studied abroad before I did. Hampton University didn't even have a study abroad office. I had a Dr. McCray, who is now Madrina. And so it's like, you have to take chances on yourself. And so I took a chance on myself in 2014. And by 2015, I landed a position that took me from New Jersey to Georgia. And I started working at Columbus State University. I didn't know a soul in Columbus State University. I didn't know what a Columbus State University was before I put the application in. I knew Atlanta, but I'm a big city girl. So Columbus was like, who, what, where, where is that? But I knew that this is where I was supposed to be. I knew that God had allowed me to study abroad 4 times so that I could then help other students, help other Black and brown students study abroad. And so I told myself to go for it, and I'm so glad I did. Corporate was cool, but this is where I knew my home was. This is where I made community with so many of you in this room. And so it was really important. And to see where I am 5 years now, you couldn't have told me that I would be sitting in Raleigh, as an assistant director for an office. I knew I was going to be somewhere, but I didn't know where exactly it was going except for study abroad, and I wasn't playing no games. Know yourself. There's a whole lot of stuff I didn't know, but I knew that part, and I had to follow that. I had to follow that journey. And I'm really, really grateful for many of you in this room who have helped to shape that community that we're talking about, because that community has allowed me to stay these 5 years. These people in this room are reasons why I stay, in addition to my students.
Thank you. Yes, we are all snapping. We're all putting your quotes down, as Ronell mentioned. Take a chance on yourself, world. But I really appreciate how you've mentioned the value of the community that we are creating within this field. I don't know because I wasn't around. And so for those of us who have been around longer, it would be interesting to hear how this community of Black professionals, professionals of color has really developed and how that's impacted the work that we're doing. It feels very collaborative. You know, it feels very homey and very secure and sacred. So yes, thank you for bringing that into this space because that's exactly what this is a community. Would another panelist want to answer this question or should we take one from the audience? Corey might have dropped the mic on it. Okay, let's hear from the audience. Marissa, I know that, did you see a question or did you want to facilitate this part? And if you have okay. All right.
I have a question for Ronell.
Yes, please.
Ronell, this is Lombuso. Sawubona.
Yeah.
So I was in Pretoria last year and I presented to a group of students at University of Johannesburg. And I talked about study abroad and they seemed curious and fascinated, but not necessarily this is what I really want to do as part of my educational experience. Can you share what your experiences have been promoting study abroad to young South Africans?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question because, and I think you put your finger on it, South Africans particularly don't want to travel abroad. And part of it is because we have I would say a family structure that kind of determines how you move, particularly when you're at university and beyond. Strategies that we've used was particularly to talk to parents. And so to get parents involved in the conversation and to try and have parents understand what the benefits would be for having their learners or their children study abroad, but also to encourage university professors and universities to actually allow for students to study abroad. Because you would not believe how difficult it is from an administrative point of view to study abroad for a student from here to go to any other parts of the world. And it's even for any student here to pick up any courses at any other university or, around the country. So it's about speaking to universities and international offices and having them play a stronger role. It's about speaking to parents because they play such a huge role in the movements of their children, especially at that age. But also, I guess it's about being able to kind of address things with scholarships and with donors, because they also do determine how students are able to move. And again, with study abroad and thinking, yes, there's interest for study abroad, but I think it's like one of those things where people count themselves out of it, and so even before it's a possibility, it's like, oh, I can't do that because I can't afford it, or I definitely won't be able to do something like that, not for an extended period of time because that's just not something that I can do. Or I'm an engineer, I definitely won't be able to leave my degree to go to any other part of the world to pick up any credits. So I think that most of the times it's like there's interest, but students speak themselves out of it. And so one of the strategies that we're using to kind of work around it is to say, well, is the fear going abroad, as in, to the US or to the UK or to Europe? But what holds you back from studying abroad on the continent? So can we create opportunities and work alongside institutions here to design programs for students to study abroad on the continent. So working with universities, but also thinking about, in South Africa, I mentioned this yesterday, we've got 26 universities in the country. We've got 50 what we call TVET colleges, but these are trading colleges, or trade colleges. And then we've also got a few what we call private institutions. So they're kind of registered as NGOs or nonprofit organizations, but they supply, they still an educational institution. So it's actually going to these institutions, but also looking at opportunities or starting to think outside of the box. If we were to work with a youth center here and connect with a youth center in Tanzania, or to connect with a youth center in Ghana, you know, and, you know, the conversation is about entrepreneurship. How powerful is that, right? And it doesn't need to just be centered around having a grade be transferred, because I think that ultimately, like the conversations about grade in particular, is such an American or Western conversation to have. Whereas from a South African or African point of view, it's less of like the grade transfer that's the issue, more than it is like the understanding that institutions here, more than anywhere else, I would say, are social institutions. And we really need to think about how do we kind of navigate those spaces. But a really great question, Nambuso. It's not easy, but I do think that it's possible and it's manageable.
That is a great question. And it sounds like there's a lot of similar challenges as the ones we face at HBCUs as well. So, okay, let's dive back into the questions that we have on the slides. And the next one is, did you participate in a study abroad experience during college? So this is kind of a follow-up to the poll question. And if so, what from your experience have you used within your profession now? And if, Lamar, if you'd like to start by sharing your thoughts on this.
Sure, thank you. And I am going to set a timer for myself, or else I will sit here and talk for a very long time. So I'm gonna use my phone. Yeah, I think that my study abroad experience like directly influenced every single thing that I do right now. Yeah, I had the incredible opportunity to travel out of the country for the very first time while I was in college. I actually went to the Dominican Republic, and you know, I had studied Spanish most of my K through 12 career, but I had never gone out of the country. And so thankfully I had an academic advisor at William & Mary, shout out to William & Mary, who I was just honest with him. I was accepted for a medical mission trip to the Dominican Republic. And so I had to let him know, yeah, shout out to the DR. I let him know, you know, I love speaking this language, but no one in my family has ever been out of the country. I don't have a passport. I don't even know where to begin. And he said, why didn't you say anything to me? And slid his credit card to me across the table and said, we are gonna get you a passport. We will make sure that you have this international experience. And that was for the first time where I had a professor or a teacher in my life who was willing to like knock down that financial barrier that had stopped me from achieving what had always been my dream. And so had that experience in the DR. And for me, that was also the first time where I saw this intersection of race and language, because I'm speaking in Spanish to folks who look like my cousins, like you look like family. And so I knew that I wanted to have a study abroad experience. And so my junior year, thanks to a Gilman scholarship, I was able to study abroad in Sevilla, Spain for 6 months. And in that experience, it just blew my mind that I could go from the projects of Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn to like sit with folks who have had a very different lived experience to me. So I knew I wanted to become a high school Spanish teacher. And so that's exactly what I did. I became a high school Spanish teacher where, I said earlier, I had the immense privilege to be able to stand in front of kids who look like me, who come from my same background, and to get them encouraged in learning languages and also traveling the world. And it was my students who actually gave me the inspiration to start Teens of Color Abroad. I would talk to my students so much about studying abroad and how important that is, and that when you go to college, you have got to have this experience, and how it changed my life. And so they asked me, you know, what about high school study abroad programs? Do those exist? Can we study abroad in high school? And so I started doing research on other high school study abroad programs, and I just saw that none of the kids in the photos looked anything like my kids, and none of the leadership looked like me. And so I surveyed all of my high school students to see how many of them were actually interested. Like, okay, y'all, for real, how many of you were interested in a language immersion study abroad program? And 78 out of 80 of the students said that they were. And I am just crazy enough to look at that data and say, okay, clearly I see that there's a racial disparity in this industry, an industry that I didn't even know existed. I didn't know international education was a thing. And so I told my students, well, I have no idea how to start a website. I have no idea how to start a nonprofit, but if this is something that you want, then I'll figure it out. And so again, I just had to respond to the needs of my community. And so I left. And so that's when I started brainstorming, like, what does this sort of look like? And actually I met a majority of you at the first time I ever was able to talk about this in person. The 2019 Diversity Abroad Conference was the first time I had ever spoken about TOCA in public. I spent all of my time in my bedroom here, like with a whiteboard, like, okay, what does this look like? And so it was so dope to be able to like share this idea with other Black folks in this industry. Huge thank you to Diversity Abroad and CAPA for selecting me as the 2019 winner. But unfortunately, we weren't able to bring students abroad. And so what we're doing right now is continuing to plant the seed, focusing on the silver linings of COVID during this time, and just what an incredible opportunity to increase accessibility to information about studying abroad. And so currently with Teens of Color Abroad, what we're doing is we are partnered with an organization called Natakalam, and we have created a virtual language learning and cultural exchange program that connects high school students from across the US with language teachers that are dispersed throughout the world who were refugees. And so we get to make double the impact, right? We get to plant the seed of language learning and you know, connecting with people across cultures to high school students of color here in the US, but we also get to provide income to refugees who are like deeply impacted by COVID and during this time of historic isolation. And so we get to create this Zoom virtual classroom where we have Black and brown students that are learning Arabic right now, which is so dope. And it's been just a privilege in reading their applications and seeing the large number of Black and brown students that are still interested in learning languages and traveling even during the virus. And so it's just been a huge privilege. I keep saying the word privilege because I always have felt like it has been a privilege to be able to work with Black and brown kids. But it's a privilege to be able to, even now from home, continue to encourage them to seek international opportunities, continue to seek language learning opportunities so that I can hand them off to you all. When they go to college, they're like, oh yeah, I had this experience in high school where I learned a little bit of Arabic. I don't know, I kind of want to study abroad in the Middle East now. Or, you know, yeah, I learned a little bit of Arabic, but now I want to try French. And so I want to study abroad in France. And so right now we're just really trying to capitalize on this moment where students are at home, and they're also trying to navigate the virtual experience and going to school. I'm actually like full-time, I'm a high school Spanish teacher. So I know what that transition looks like. And so we are creating like engaging language learning opportunities in hopes that they'll continue to seek them in college and beyond.
We're so proud of you. All of us. We want to be like you when we grow up. You're doing very incredible work.
Thank you.
And it is a beautiful, it's, again, as a part of the community, it's wonderful to see how folks develop and grow within it. So.
Yeah, and if I could just add one thing, I just wanted to shout you out because at the very beginning of COVID, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I want to inspire kids and have them, you know, not give up on, you know, not saying, oh, well, I don't want to travel internationally. There's a virus happening. And so I reached out to, you know, folks in the international education field to say, hey, can you write a letter of inspiration for young folks? Like, we've got to keep that like hope alive. And you were like one of the first people to say, yeah, I got you. When do you need it by? And like, you sent that story. And so another cool thing about being in this industry now is just how incredible it's been to connect with other Black folks and to get that support digitally. Like, some of you I haven't even met in person but they've jumped in and been like, how can I help you with TOCA? So I think it's just a really just a dope community and a great feeling.
It is, it really is. And that was a great initiative. Dear Young Traveler, right? If I'm getting it correct.
Yeah, you got it. And so, yeah, I'll bring those stories back, but I definitely want to just keep hope alive in those students and that they don't give up on the idea of studying abroad.
Yes, and that's why we're doing this as well. So I want to give a shout out to all the students who are here, because really this was intended to keep that flame burning. It's a collaborative effort across our HBCU campuses, something that the three of us, Stephanie, Marissa, and I had never done before, seen done before. So we're all being creative these days, and here we are in it. Pernell, this picture is lovely. One, because you're in it, and two, because Noelle, who's not
shout out to Noelle.
Noelle is another one of the community leaders that we love, who works with IES Abroad right now. So could you tell us where you're at in this picture, and then if you'd also answer the same question?
Yeah, so this picture, I want to say it was 2018. Noelle and I came to her with some concerns at my campus that we weren't doing enough programming on, I guess, underrepresented populations, right? Or locations, excuse me, locations. And so I had this idea of I'm very passionate about sending students to study in Africa and actually engage with the community. And so we kind of developed this program. This is actually the pilot, and it was very, very successful. The goal of the program was not only to share study opportunities, but also dispel some myths. So it was very interactive, some Q&As, and we also had a panel. So this was during our study abroad week in 2018. So yeah, very fun event, and that's actually somewhat become a staple for our programs now in our program lineup. So we have this just about each year, with the exception of this year because of COVID. But to answer the question, I also studied abroad in 2 locations. My first program was in London back in 2012. So it was a very exciting time. The Olympics was preparing to happen and all that. So it was really cool, but I think it definitely impacted me personally, because I really had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And it was the first, I'm a very independent person because of how I've been raised and things like that. And so I really had to, I was embarking on this new experience, and I had to, learn how to ask for help. It was my first time going on a plane. I didn't know how to book a ticket. First time out the country, I didn't know how to prepare for that. And I was also coming from a low income household, single mother household. And so it's how do you tell your mom you want to go abroad for a semester, but not have her panic? Because, we didn't, to be honest, we didn't have the money for it. But luckily, when you're asking for help and for resources, you eventually will find them. I was led to some resources and some scholarships and things like that. So I learned to be proud of, where I came from, all of my identities and all those things. And so, but I still experienced some challenges while going abroad. As I mentioned earlier, I was the only Black student in my group. It was a group of 25. But again, I became comfortable with it. It also, although some of the group dynamics weren't always the best, it kind of pushed me to really engage with London and London culture, London Black culture. And I had a great time. I enjoyed it. And I felt like I was the only one in my group that really got that authentic experience. While other people, I felt like they were just a tourist, right? And so I'm really big on that when I work with students. And even when I lead programs abroad, I'm go beyond your touristy limits. I had one of our program directors told me that. And we're not here to be tourists. We're here to really engage with the community. And so, yeah, I think that was my first program. I also was a Gilman Scholar as well, which definitely helped me get the funds to go on that program. And there was a lot of support that kind of helped me with that. And so with the, for those of you that may not know, with Gilman Scholarship, there's also like a pay it forward kind of thing where you're given this award, but you have to do what they call a follow-on project. I think they changed the name, but it's like a service project when you return. How are you going to promote the word of, you know, international education and those opportunities on your campus or your community? And so I did a few follow-on projects. I collaborated with my study abroad office, which is where I currently work now. You know, I did a couple presentations. And also got to do some things at their study abroad fair. And so I'm like walking into this new world, and I'm having these presentations, and Gilman is for, you know, low income students on Pell Grant, things like that. And so I'm actually beginning to engage with students like myself. And I'll never forget my first presentation. I don't know why I'm getting goosebumps talking about it all over again, but I'll never forget my first presentation. I was extremely nervous. And I was like, nobody's going to come to this thing. And we, I think the person that was like advising me at the time also felt like there wasn't going to be a huge turnout. And so they got like this, we had like to downsize the room, but the room actually packed out. It was like standing room. And it was something about seeing that crowd, students of color, you know, everybody had this interest about everybody had this interest in studying abroad. And so it was something, and it's getting like, you know, goosebumps again talking about, but just knowing that there's that need that really pushed me to do more. And so even beyond my follow-on project, I continue to, you know, meet with students to talk about my experience and help them prepare for study abroad programs and things like that. And that eventually led me to my second program. I went to Ghana in the summer of 2013, and being a Gilman Scholar, and then also collaborating with my study abroad office throughout the school year before the program started. I got to see some of the back end preparation work that that the Ghana director was doing, and it was really, really interesting. And I was like, this is cool. And then, you know, being in the study abroad office, I'm like, what are y'all preparing for a fair? That sounds cool. That sounds cool. And so I just found myself like being around the office, being in the environment quite often. And so, but the Ghana program was very different for me because there was that cultural context. And as all the students are experiencing this, I'm having side conversations and debriefs with my program director on how this is impacting me and what I would like to do in the future. And it was like, well, you can pursue this field. And I was like, I could do what? This is a real thing. And so I think that was the moment where everything kind of connected. Me wanted to be around the study abroad office all the time. Me wanted to engage with students, especially students of color that had an interest in study abroad, but wasn't sure how to go about doing it. And then being able to take students to the motherland, I'm like, this is a thing. And so to answer the second part of the question, how that's impacted my current role, I've been able to have a lot of full circle moments. And so I've been able to lead students to Ghana 2 years. I led 2018 and 2019. And it was life-changing. Like I thought I was going to be the one like teaching students all the time, but I was learning a lot as well. And it was just something about allowing students to, we had a lot of conversations about unlearning and relearning. And this is also part of the presentation that Noel and I did that's in this picture. We have this conversation about, students that, went through education in America. We have to unlearn a lot of what we were taught because some of it may have been false or not the complete story. And then these students are in these, we went to Cape Coast and went to like the slave castles and a lot of other important parts of our history. And they're learning, the side of history, like from the Ghanaian point of view. And so it was awesome. And then also being able to have those conversations of what does it look like to be, what is a minority, right? I'm actually not fond of using that word all the time. Well, I'm not fond of using the word, I'll put that. And it's just a personal thing because I recognize, you know, when I took those students abroad, they're just like, wow, like I see people like me everywhere I go. But I thought, you know, they hear the word minority, they're fed that word, you know, throughout higher education all the time. And it gives them this sense that they are less than. And I'm like, minority shifts depending on the word, you know, the context of minority shifts depending on where you are. So here you're a majority. And then I also have like white students on my program, and they're going through culture shock because they're like, I see nobody like me. And I'm just like, welcome. You see how it feels now? Like, well, I don't say it like that, but you get what I'm saying. But we have those conversations. And so I'm able to bring these students from different cultures together and have these important conversations. And students, you know, I've had students that have completed programs with me and they've gone back to Ghana or somewhere in Africa to study or like Peace Corps and things like that. And so it's been very rewarding being in this field and being able to be the bridge. And that was something else. I have like points on the side here, but that was something, I think that was something that my program director, my Ghana program director had mentioned, who I actually work with now with the Ghana program. But during our closing ceremony when I was a student, I asked, like, what made you create this program? Because he's from Accra as well. And he was like, I wanted this program to serve as a bridge for students, specifically African Americans and other, you know, people of diaspora, to be able to come to Ghana and experience it authentically. And he was like, you know, I also serve as a bridge, being able to serve as a program director and, you know, help students go there, learn these experiences, and also take them back across the bridge to their families. And I was like, that's what I'm doing now. Like my family, they're not really fond of traveling, but they're going to ask for some gifts. They're going to ask for pictures and stories and things like that. And so I use that slogan as an international educator of being the bridge for my students, for my family, for my culture, my people, and being able to provide access, whether it's a program or any other resource, and allow them to be able to cross that bridge, gain the resources so they can go back and share with their family, friends, and whoever else they may come in contact with. So, yeah.
Thank you, Purnell. I love that. Being the bridge. We're all bridging the divide, bridging the gap.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're actually running low on time, and I know that we have one question from the audience already queued up, and then we're going to dive right into the panelists' final remarks, where they'll provide one piece of advice for all of us who are either in the field or who are considering the field. Okay, so let's start with the question from Dr. I talked to you. If you could just unmute yourself. Yes, Lakosh, please. You're muted. I'll unmute you. Oh.
Okay. Hey, this is a question and a comment. You know, this is Dr. Lokesh Shivakumari. I'm from Mississippi Valley State University. It would be great if bigger HBCUs actively collaborate on an ongoing basis with smaller HBCUs in terms of joint study abroad programs and joint grant opportunities too. You know, I believe when we grow as a group, and collaboration among HBCUs helps to pool resources, maximize our outreach, and expand opportunities for our students and also faculty, which is very important if we want to increase the number of students participating in study abroad program. And it will also give us opportunities for fellow students from smaller schools to look and learn from those who have participated in study abroad programs. You know, we have been doing lots of activities here at Valley to increase the global awareness among students and encourage them to apply for Gilman scholarships, or Mr. Whitefield, he just talked about. It's just that increasing that awareness, those opportunities exist, and also give them the confidence that you can do it too. And if they see students from other institutions who have done those things, it will be inspiring for them. I strongly believe that may we grow as a group, and this session is a good example and showcase that we can do what we can do collaboratively. And on another note, I also want to share with you all that this year MVSU has been fortunate to have been awarded the 2020 IDS Capacity Building Grant Opportunity. And that is something that institutions can exchange information about different grant opportunities available, scholarships available, maybe Mr. Lamar talked about various different opportunities. Maybe we can collaborate with you, things like that. So we have been doing a year-long campaign to increase this global awareness among our students. So I would like to request, to have an ongoing collaboration among our institutions. So I just wanted to share that information with the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm in full agreement. We have to use our shared resources to build and to grow collectively. And you make a really strong point. Most of the HBCUs are smaller institutions. So for those of us that have sizable student populations, I think it is, if we choose for it to be, our responsibility to collaborate, especially with those schools that don't have study abroad offices, which is also the majority of HBCUs. So we're trying. It's a continued effort. This is one good step, but thank you for sharing the resources and the willingness to partner as well. All right, so if I could just ask the panelists with the remaining moments that we have, if you could spend less than a minute each giving a piece of another jewel, another nugget. You've already dropped so many, but if you could just share another gem with us as a community in terms of advice for folks considering the field, or perhaps those of us who are in the field that may just need some inspiration from another resource. And whomever would like to start first.
Sure, I'll jump in first. I just want to bring back every single thing that Corey said. Y'all go for it. Just go for it. Like, if you have the passion for this, like, meaning it is deeply embedded in you, it is like your fire, go for it, 100%.
Yeah. I also kind of want to go down that path and to say that even to professionals that's in the field and to students who are thinking about entering the field, this is probably the best time to be reimagining what engagement could look like. Never ever in our lifetime, well, I don't know, I hope not, will we all just be on a big pause. We're not able to travel, we're not able to engage. And so how do you do engagement differently? Lamar is saying, let's do engagement by doing it online. I'm saying that's not, a possibility for everyone on the continent. So how do we find other ways to do that engagement? And so my encouragement is to, yes, come into this field and play your part, but also just to think about how do you kind of grow and bring others with you. And that means like collectively. And one other thing that I would really like to encourage, especially with the narrative around study abroad so Black, it's also thinking about study abroad being decolonized, in the same way that we have to think about what we know and what we think about when we engage the continent. It is a program or a moment for us to just redefine what these things are. So I don't want to be, talking about globalization and have it just be limited to us going to the world or the world coming to us. It has to be bigger. It has to be bolder. And so my encouragement is for people in the field and for people entering the field, come into the space wanting to make a difference and wanting to, make your mark.
I want to encourage everyone to show up as your authentic selves, whatever that means to you on that day, that time, that space, that place, because that's how we are going to learn. And that's how we're going to be who we're going to be. That's how we're going to grow and we're going to evolve. And this is for students, this is for colleagues, because we want you as a student to study abroad. We want you to do that. We want you to show up as your authentic self, and we want you to bring your authentic self back. And for our colleagues, we are chocolate chips in the milk and we know it. So we still need to show up as authentic for ourselves, as our authentic self, as who we are, as how we are, because that's also how we're going to shift and change that narrative to be what it should be and what it actually is versus what this perpetuation that we're trying to get away from.
Yeah, I mean, it's already been said, but I would just echo again, be bold, be bold. There isn't currently a pipeline for, people that want to necessarily work at HBCUs in the field of international education. So one thing that I've really done is latch on to someone. I think there'll be probably a spreadsheet of everybody that was on this call of some sort. But I think that's the key thing for me. I think Dr. Abrams got off, but I rely heavily on the community. I always, right across the road, TSU, Dr. Jewel Wynn she is phenomenal. And so again, for my colleagues, definitely latch on if you're new to the field, but for the students, you all also attach yourselves with that international office, however it is materializing on your campus, whether it be a single individual or an office in itself, you need to be beating that door down. And then also Warren Awards, the application deadline for undergraduates is coming up February 7th. And I had a conversation with someone, and there's a 1 in 3 chance that is probably one of the highest probabilities within these prestigious fellowships. So make sure that you put your application in, you belong there. And there's a lot of funding as well. So Boren, Wrangell, is a whole lot of them out there, but Gilman as well. So shout out to those, but definitely make sure that you apply to at least one of those prestigious fellowships, internships, and that kind of thing.
I would echo everyone, but I will also just say, make sure, don't be afraid to connect with people. For those of you that may be students interested in this field, if you know someone, maybe it's your study abroad advisor, or even people that you may come across on LinkedIn, don't be afraid to reach out. I have learned that the community in international ed, specifically the Black community within international ed, has been very supportive. And I remember, being early on, being intimidated. I was in one of the meetings at our large conference. They were introducing a lot of the trailblazers in this field. And I was like, they're so cool, they're so cool. But then it was like, I was able to reach out. I actually got paired with one as a mentor. And actually, I know Alina, she's on this call now. And I work with her on the NAFSA Leadership Development Committee. And so don't be afraid to connect, because you never know where those connections may lead you, whether you are a student or even if you are a newcomer in the field. Don't be afraid to connect and reach out and let people know where you want to go in this field.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all of your remarks. These are the LinkedIn pages for all of our panelists. So, I mean, obviously you can just type their names in. This recording will be available online shortly. But if we go back one more slide, there's a few resources that we'd like to offer. One of which is an opportunity to connect with a mentor. And so this is hyperlinked, and we're going to share the presentation so that you have all of this information. The Open Doors report, so if you're really interested in knowing what the latest information is around study abroad and who's going, where they're going, who's not going, this is a report that just came out on Monday through IIE. Some of the trends in higher education as well. The Bunch Center has a newsletter in which we always feature the Summer Enrichment Program through Wrangell, the Payne Fellowship through USAID, and other international initiatives that is just at global.howard.edu. So all are welcome to subscribe to that. And then this article is one that a friend of mine sent me, which is all about how Black women in particular are saving our lives by moving abroad. And so it's not just for Black women, it's for everyone. It makes the point that we live so much more healthfully and authentically oftentimes when we're outside of the US due to all of the noise, the social and systemic injustice that we face here. So it just gives you food for thought to know that the world is our oyster and we can choose to live in other places if we want to. I've been speaking a lot, and it's been my pleasure to moderate this session. I would like to now give my colleagues, or welcome my colleagues, Stephanie and Marissa, time to share their gratitude. But again, thank you all for participating as attendees. Thank you all for being dope panelists. And thank you all for making up this beautiful community that I personally call the Study Abroad So Black movement. But you know, that's just me. So I'm gonna stop. Love y'all.
It's been such a blessing hearing everyone's story. Just being a part of this, it reminds me of this term that I learned about when I first went to the motherland in South Africa. It's called Ubuntu, and I'm sure Renelle can speak about the spirit of Ubuntu. It means we are because they are, and it just basically encourages community. And so we are who we are because not only of our ancestors, but the work that we're doing right now. So continue doing what we're doing. We're paving the way, and also we're lifting each other up doing this. This is very soul filling. So glad to be a part of the platform, and also glad to be in community with y'all.
You're muted, Marissa.
Sorry. Thank you everyone for joining us again today. I was saying this has been the icing on the cake for our fall 2020 semester, and maybe for the year. This was really uplifting to have all of you all here on this platform, sharing with each other, sharing with our students. I feel really blessed to be in this place and in this space that I'm in right now. And I know that we have so many more ways to go, and I look forward to it. So I want to wish you and yours a happy holiday season. We are not done yet. We'll be back in the spring. So stay blessed. And if you have any questions or want to do any work with us, we're here.
One more thing, Black History Month is around the corner, y'all. Let's start working. Let's start collaborating. So I'm going to just throw that out there.
And if I could just say again, thank you, ladies. You have been so great in organizing this. Thank you so much in developing this, because we definitely appreciate it. I appreciate it. Our campus appreciated it. And it's really, really women like you all that are changing the conversation and putting us men in spaces to have conversations with you all. So thank you for keeping us in the conversation, in the fight, as we continue to work towards advancing international education.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Takes a village. We're a team, yo. We're a team. So if those who are still on want to take a picture, I'm always good for a good picture. You can always count on me for a photo.
I love it.
I'll take a screenshot whenever. All right.
Do a countdown.
I'll do a countdown for sure. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna go with 1, 2, 3. Yes, okay. Wait, did I do it? I think I did it. I did it, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Good night from the future. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. What time is it in South Africa? Just let us know.
Glenwood, nice seeing you.
It's 12:39 a.m. It's about to be 1. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. No, we are tired for you.
Oh, guys, I'm still gonna have to go. I still have a long ways before this is the end of my night.
Well, at least you look good, girl.
Yeah, well, yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Raina. Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Marissa. Really, really appreciate it.
Of course, of course. And thank you, Miles, as a Howard University student representing. Thank you to the end. Appreciate it. Linwood, yes, from the chats. It's been a long time. Yay, come on, come through, community. Janae, where are you at? Which institution are you affiliated with? We can stop recording now at this point.
Yeah, sorry.